So we're in Carneros, right along, I think it's Huichica Creek. This was a vineyard. We're standing in the remains of a vineyard that suffered from disease and generally being planted in a wetland that should be a wetland still. This is the Napa RCD's, the Resource Conservation District's demonstration vineyard. And they pulled all the vines 3 years ago, piled them up with the intention to burn them in burn piles. But since then learned about the flame cap kiln and thought that it'd be cool to show everyone in the area how to use a flame cap kiln to make biochar out of woody waste, in this case, grapevines. So generally in the area, wood waste like this is burnt off in a pile. All of the carbon that's in the wood goes back up into the atmosphere. Usually it makes a lot of smoke too, although there are some techniques we're going to teach today for how to do a regular burn pile without making smoke. When you make biochar though, you take some of that carbon and turn it into a long-term stable form of carbon that you can add to the soil and increase the soil carbon. So what we're doing today is taking the carbon that the vines pulled out of the atmosphere over the course of their life. They were planted in 1990, so they've been sucking carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it in their trunks for the past 35, 34 years. And today, we're transforming that carbon into something permanent to put back into the soil here where it'll stay and support life for the next 100 to 1,000 years.
So I think what we're all doing is sort of reawakening to how the earth takes care of herself. And then with the two-leggeds coming, we were such a small element here until the industrial age. And the industrial age is where we, as two-leggeds, we really lost our connection that we were part of this organism. And that we were supposed to be, our intention was to be stewards, not predators. And somehow in the industrial age, really kind of through the Inquisition, I think, like if we look to what was happening in Europe, it sort of turned into this predatory relationship to the earth and to women in general. And so that's what's being recovered now. And just like we had said earlier, that the earth herself is kind of going, oh, right, this is how we do it. And the burns, all these huge fires we've been having, that's the earth correcting the balance. Because then the fire is essential to most of the life forms, especially the tree people. And the tree people, it clears out the understory, it cleans out their dead limbs. And then the ancient trees that were here in California before the European invasions, and I don't know the Latin names, but the big giant trees that were like thousands of years old, those were the first things the Euro invaders cut down. And so then they died, but in order for them to be reseeded or reinvigorated, they need the intense heat that the fires are providing. Because these heats, because living here in Napa, of course, we've been through 5 fires, and I saw some of the pictures from Lake County and Up Valley that, there's this little puddle of silver, and the guy was like, yeah, that was my car. And then a friend of mine up in Cobb Mountain in Lake County, he thought, well, his coin collection, when you have evacuated from a fire, you're thinking what will still be there when you get back. And they thought, well, the cast iron pot would make it. And I'm like, yeah, the cast iron pot should make it. Well, none of those things made it. And then my one friend had a coin collection from his childhood, and he saw the coins, and he goes, oh, the coins made it, but he went to touch them. It was just ash. And the ash blew away. So that's a real intense fire. So that intense fire is what will start those old trees growing. They need that to germinate. They need that intense fire. So now the people, the two-leggeds, kind of coming in back to balance and waking up to the biochar, that carbon is an essential part of healthy soil and healthy growth, that now we're kind of recovering that memory, and it's just a small little inclination. But like we said earlier, the earth herself is bringing herself into balance. And with Earth Day and stuff, people were saying we have to save the earth, and I've always been saying, oh no, we have to save ourselves. The earth is taking care of herself. And so these land practices or earth balancing practices, the earth was doing it. But indigenous people, when you look pre-Euro invasions, pre-industrial, to that ancient wisdom that we have archaeological proof in California's 10,000-year continuous occupation of earth stewards, the Native Americans. But really, some of our friends who have 30,000 year, they say it was 30,000 years of occupation and stewardship. So the two-leggeds were working in balance with the earth, and then they would put fires. They would start fires to burn off the grass and then to stimulate the growth. When we purchased our land in 1998 as a Native American group, we tried to get a burn, that's what our elders told us to burn. They said, well, the first thing you have to do is burn, and I didn't understand any of that stuff, and I'm like, okay. So I just go to the fire, whatever, the Department of Fire, whatever, and they're like, oh no, you can't burn. Well, 20 years later, they want us to burn, and I said, well, you stopped us from learning, but now everybody's doing it. But what we were being told at that time, 25 years ago, and the elders are saying, oh no, if you burn, that'll get rid of the scrub grass, it'll invigorate the indigenous perennial grasses, which are part of the food for the people, but also for all the animals and birds and wildlife. And then it gets rid of mice, ticks, it invigorates and fertilizes the soil. Mice, ticks, there's something else in there that we love to hate. But it gets rid of all of that. And then it's like, what's not to love? And so really what we're starting to do now with prescribed burns, which was a word that, like you had said, was demonized. Native American, our practices, our ceremony was demonized and then criminalized. So it was illegal. And then even when we purchased land that wasn't part of the, Department of Interior, tribal land, we just owned it outright as an organization. And trying to get permission to manage our land, we weren't given permission. But now the good news is, it's 20 years later, which really is a blink of an eye, that now everybody's converting because of all the fires we've had throughout the state and really throughout the whole region, the whole northwest, southwest has just been burning. And that's the earth rebalancing herself. And so by us kind of rebalancing our minds as earth stewards, caretakers rather than predation. And this is a really essential part to soil health and forest health and water health. So it's great that everybody's kind of starting to realize this big awakening or whatever. And so some of the indigenous leaders in California are in the forefront working with non-native people. I think the biggest concern for Native Americans is that this knowledge that they've kept in their wisdom and been trying to get the state to allow them to do since the invasions happened, that it's still being a little co-opted, that the Native Americans are teaching them and then the groups are going off and they're making money and doing stuff. But then the Indians are kind of being left by the side of the road. So I think what Native Americans are really wanting to be the ones hired, to be in the income flow that's occurring and not just be kind of predated on. And I think that's the concern I'm seeing right now. I mentioned Ron Good from the Mono tribe down near Bass Lake around Yosemite. He doesn't have that concern, but he does, because he's teaching everybody. He's working with UC Davis. He's working now with more universities, teaching people, because he feels the more people that have the right information of how we can regain balance using fire for forest management and, again, water and soil and pest management, that's a good thing for everybody. Humans' relationship to fire has been fear. It's one of the base fears, blood, fire, and whatever else. So I think that they're afraid of fire. They want it, they need it to stay warm and to cook, but they still fear it rather than having a deep respect. It's one of the base elements. And then fire is a tool. Fire, is a gift from the sun to keep us warm when it's cold, to light us in the darkness of night, but also to reinvigorate the soil to help clear out. Instead of all this man-hour of cutting weeds or tractoring, you would just be burning. I think for the Euro invaders or the current population to realize that fire is our friend, and the massive firestorms we've had is because the state wasn't being managed. And if we manage it correctly, those massive fires won't be happening. We'll be using the fire as a friend, as part of our toolkit.
When I, showed up to find this place, I was looking for the plume of smoke, which you had said there wouldn't be, but I was still looking for it. So it's kind of cool to see the difference between a fire that is, what do you call it, pyrolyzing?
So we're flame carbonizing, which is a form of pyrolysis. But the absence of smoke is smoke is flammable. And if you can get it hot enough and send it through a flame, it'll contribute to the flame and make it hotter. The secret to these kilns, and we'll do a conservation burn later, if you have the flame up on top, all the smoke as stuff warms up will have to go through that, and it contributes to the flame and makes it bigger.
And doesn't go out into the
doesn't go
atmosphere
up into the
nearly as much.
atmosphere, that's
Okay.
So it's counterintuitive, but as I'll show later, when you light a conservation burn, you light it on top and downwind instead of on bottom and upwind.
Right.
Because instead of letting the flames carry through and ignite stuff that way, you're letting the heat from the flame penetrate down, and this stuff starts smoking and creating flammable stuff that goes up through the flame, makes the flame bigger, and it ends up traveling down faster.
Okay.
It's counterintuitive. So that's why you don't see any smoke, because this kiln at this point has a flame over the whole top.
Okay.
And all the volatile stuff that could be a smoke is instead getting really hot and contributing to the flame and keeping it going.
One other thing I'm noticing as I'm working these piles is all the friggin' wires.
Yeah, man. It's supposed to be part of it.
I know. My folks are big, you know, head-trained acolytes.
Yeah.
Which involves no metal in the vineyard ideally at all, and definitely no wires. It's probably not possible for every vineyard and every wine grower to go head trained, but it is maybe another added benefit. I mean, to put in an acre of vineyards is really expensive, and a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do it, you know, another element of the stack function is putting less in, and it makes it easier to take out. And so then at the end of the day, you're gonna rake it all out and pour water on it.
That's right, yeah, cool it down, and we'll just have piles and piles of carbon.
Do you have to process that at all?
Yeah.
Drive over it or something?
So the benefit in the soil comes partly from the surface area that stuff can stick to.
Okay.
And the more you crunch it down, the more surface area you get. It's like an exponential thing. You know, every time you cut it in half, you get a quadratic of that surface area. So yes, to get the biggest bang for your buck, if you're concerned mostly about the cationic exchange capacity,
Which of course I am.
of course you are, then yeah, you should pulverize it. But then it's dusty and hard to handle, and it gets in your lungs. And the truth is, in the process of raking it out, we do pulverize it a little. Like, you'll have fractions of all different sizes.
Okay.
The chunkier stuff, I really like it. You know, it self-settles in bags, so I have all the chunky stuff up on top, and I use that at the bottom of my pots.
Cool.
For like water penetration and kind of water holding. And then the dusty stuff, as you co-compost with it, will be integrated into the compost and has its full effect. So I don't worry about crushing it down.
Okay.
But if you only have 1 gallon and you're trying to get the biggest bang for your buck,
Okay.
put it in a pillowcase and
Sounds like fun. Sounds cathartic.
yeah, it's not so bad.
So you are mixing it with compost. I hear that is kind of the way to get the most.
Yeah, because so it's you know, it's like all the other tools in regenerative agriculture. You want to try to get lots of benefits.
Stack the functions.
So when you add biochar to compost, it brings in oxygen, and it brings in kind of like a moisture regulating agent. It'll either, if you have too much moisture, it'll soak it up. If things are getting dried out, it'll release it. And the combination of those two things, aeration and moisture regulation, makes the compost go much faster. And then, so you get that benefit of the biochar being there, and then you're also getting the biochar charged up, all the surface area, loading it up with microbes and nutrients. Then you can just mix it with finished compost and get it wet.
Okay.
And let it sit.
Okay.
Or for vineyards, honestly, like the big, one more stacked function is we already have all the tools to spread compost really easily. So once biochar is integrated into the compost, it's no added difficulty. You just spread your compost and you're getting biochar out there too.